Hello, and welcome to everyone joining us live today for Stream's Engage and Elevate webinar. And a big thank you to those tuning in to this recording later. I'm Kenzie, the Field and Event Marketing Manager here at Stream. And for those who are unfamiliar, Stream helps developers launch apps faster with our modern SDKs, providing all the essential building blocks needed to create reliable, performant, and feature-rich real-time communication experiences. We work with companies like Vestiaire Collective, Sotheby's, and Zumper to provide live communication solutions that are redefining the marketplace app industry. I'm thrilled to welcome Oliver as our guest today. He is currently the product director at HURR, where he leads innovation in the fashion marketplace with a diverse background that includes founding his own music production agency, Brat Boy Music, and launching a product management consultancy. Oliver brings a wealth of experience in both creative and technical fields, and his journey spans across multiple industries, making him a true expert. Let's give a warm welcome to Oliver.
I think the thing that really sets us apart is that we've got an incredibly holistic view of the problem that we're trying to solve. A big part of it is going to come from consumers at the end of the day and customers, but there's also a litany of businesses that need to be supported, enterprises, there's supply chains, there's all kinds of things. So we've tried to take a really holistic view and create products and services that support not just people, but also companies through our enterprise branch, the fulfillment side of it. Obviously, I always make this joke of fashion businesses try and aim for a 0% return rate. They don't want anything coming back, and they're constantly battling against that. We need 100% return rate, otherwise things are going walkabouts. So yeah, we're trying to just build an entire ecosystem and a platform that can support not only the customer side of it, but also the business side of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like that's something like as a consumer that I don't always think about.
Yeah.
So that's great insight. And even before her, you had a lot of experience, not just in the product world, but also as like an entrepreneur, founder. So how has your previous experience prepared you to lead product at HURR?
I think it's one of those things. I remember speaking to our co-founder Victoria about when's the right time to hire your first product person, and realistically, I think that as a founder, you are the product person. You wear so many hats, obviously, but product ultimately boils down to solving customer problems and prioritizing the things that matter to customers most, and trying to coordinate that with the remainder of the organization. So as a founder, that is ultimately what you're trying to do. You might have an amazing idea in mind that, you want to reinvent, I don't know, whiteboards or something like that. But at the end of the day, unless you're actually solving a customer problem, it's going to be really tough to get customers in, and especially even harder than to charge them for it and to actually make a viable business. So I learned a lot of those very, very difficult kind of lessons early on through being a founder. And it's something that I still love and do. And in a lot of ways, I still see myself as a founder within the business, whether it's just a tiny new idea or a feature. It's something that you have to take from being this sometimes slightly crazy idea, but just, sometimes very easy idea, validating it, speaking to customers, taking it through that whole journey. I think the only difference is that now it's a lot more stable, whereas when you're in founder mode, you're very, very just engaged, and every day there's something new and you're constantly pivoting. I always think of that meme from Friends with the boss of pivot, and it's like that every day. So yeah, it's definitely helped me enormously, and I would recommend anyone who really wants to go into product leadership to try their hand at being a founder, because it reframes your entire perspective on things.
Yeah, definitely. And when we spoke previously, you mentioned, there's kind of this gold standard in product management that everybody's always chasing. And can you elaborate a little bit more what you meant by that and how that philosophy of not chasing it has shaped your approach at HURR?
Definitely. I think that idea was really born from COVID, actually, when we, as an organization, had to effectively just scrap the whole playbook, right, and start again, like most companies had to. But for us, people just suddenly stopped renting because they didn't have any sort of thing to rent for. And as a product team, that was incredibly challenging, because then you go, okay, well, which problems should we be solving right now? Especially when you look at business, just do that. So I was trying to speak to a few people, try and gain some inspiration from advisors. And I kept seeing this, what I call this gold standard of product management, where everyone just kind of regurgitated the same thing. And It's not that it's not true or not valid, but ultimately, just because a product manager at Facebook has been able to write a long Medium post on like how you should do product management, doesn't mean that every single product manager and every single organization should follow that. Not only just because it's, you know, one of the few people that's actually bothered to write about it, but also just because it's from Facebook. And that's what I mean about the gold standard. It doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong, but every organization, every product person should look very intensely at their customers, their problems, their organization structure, their size, everything, to try and dictate and inform what their product process should be. HURR is very, very small and nimble considering the size of our business and the number of customers that we've got. And, you know, it's something we've tried to keep the lean startup kind of methodology. And that's presented its own challenges. And so, you know, I can't spend 3 months doing discovery work on a particular feature area like someone managing a button at Google might be able to do, right? So we just have to adapt and we have to change. And that was really, for me, something I like to talk to people about and advise people on, is just take inspiration, but then take the best bits of all of those things that applies to your organization, because that's when you'll get really solid results.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And even like comparing it to the fashion industry, like trends come in and out and just the same, like user expectations are changing all the time. So you do have to be like quick and on your feet. You can't, you know, dedicate a year or whatnot to just one little thing. So that's great.
Yeah.
And in your view, what are some key elements of running a successful product process?
I think the most sort of undervalued thing, and it's silly because everyone talks about it all the time, and any book you read, any Medium post you read, everyone says the same thing, but it's speaking to customers. The number of organizations that I've seen, observed, been in, whatever, where, you know, they just don't listen to customers, especially when I was running my consultancy, there was a lot of that kind of involvement of hearing people, they have their own ideas and they want to run with it. At the end of the day, if you speak to customers, you'll be able to get their problems and then you can go around solving them. And I think something I started doing was I would just cold call customers. I literally had time blocked in my diary, and every week I will then cold call a customer. And it's as simple as I just go down the orders list. I'm like, right, I'm picking on you today. And I just call them and I say, hey, don't worry, you're not in trouble, nothing's happening. A few people were saying, well, why are you calling me? I was like, it's okay, it's okay. You know, and I just say, what did you like? And most importantly, what didn't you like? What are the things that we could improve upon? What are the things we can make easier? What's going to get you coming back again? And then trying to do the same. It's slightly harder to cold call people who have never transacted with you because you don't have their phone number and things like that. So, you know, we'll try and send out emails, we'll try and send out surveys, we'll listen very intently on social media, doing social listening. Also, we keep a very close tie with the customer care team. And so all the complaints that get fed through, so everything we're constantly exposed to, because again, that's probably the front line, if you will. So that's the biggest thing. That's the hallmark of any good product process. How you take that from there, again, will vary from organization to organization. Some people will take that through an intense discovery process. That's fine. Some people will run with, I think it's the Basecamp, the project management software. Their company have this idea called Shape Up, and one of the sort of foundational points of it is you don't have a backlog. Basically, you work on the thing that is most important now, and you'll know. And their argument is you will always know what's most important now. You don't need to maintain this massive backlog of ideas. You speak to your customers; they will tell you what their biggest problem is right now. So there's a whole range and a spectrum there, but it all fundamentally comes from what is the customer saying? I think a big change that we've seen in the industry over the last year or two has been being commercially minded, being more commercially minded. And I saw quite a funny meme online that there's, you know, product people now can't spend all their time, you know, designing a confetti pop when you get to checkout just because it's customer delight. No, they actually have to think, how are we going to make this feature profitable, or whatever it might be. So I think there's a healthy balance there of listening to your customers and then trying to find a really commercially viable, scalable route from there to creating a solution.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel like in any project that I've done, sometimes I'm so into it and so like in the weeds that to me, it makes sense, like, okay, they're gonna come to this page, they're gonna like this dress, they're gonna check out, and then this, but then, I pass it to my supervisor and they're like, yeah, this part doesn't really make sense, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So that feedback is really great to be able to iterate and kind of see, and everybody also has different experiences, Someone in a different country may find one part more confusing or something like that, so.
I mean,
that's great.
one thing that we have, we call it the HURR echo chamber, because we definitely get into it sometimes. It's normal, all organizations will. Something that's really interesting with HURR is that many of the employees are also customers. They rent and they lend. I don't, unfortunately, because we don't have menswear on the platform, that's fine. But, a lot of the team members, they will be renters and lenders themselves. And so you've actually got, that part is amazing because I can get up from my desk, go and get immediate feedback from someone who is, directly involved and relevant, and they can give me some immediate feedback. And that is amazing for if you do really need to make a snap decision. I love that. It's also good just for a starting point, just, lighting the match and starting some ideas and getting around some blockages and things like that. You can definitely tap into that. But I'm always very mindful that the people in that room, whilst they are renters and lenders and customers themselves, they are also her team members. And so they're going to have a whole amount of context as to why things happen, or maybe this could be happening or whatever it might be. And so you might not get the true problem from them. You might not be able to glean the exact thing because they're probably filtering a lot out because they're just being nice and they know exactly what's going on. So yeah, again, it's just a balance. You cast a wide net as possible and speak to as many people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And can you share an experience where, you got that user feedback and how you, created maybe a new feature or iterated on something about her?
Yeah, I'll talk about, I can't say what it is because we're about to launch it, but something that's very, very front of mind right now is...
That'll be the header.
Yeah. Secret feature launch. It's something we've been kicking about for a while as an idea. And I'll probably come on to talk about Flex in a little bit, but in a very similar way, we reacted very quickly. We decided this was something that we wanted to tackle, and it was something that we needed to speak to our lender community about. Immediately, I put a meeting in the diary for all the people I knew who were lenders in the room, and I just got some immediate feedback from them. And then I went and had one-to-one sessions with each of them as well to try and get just some more detailed, nitty-gritty feedback about, here's what we're looking to build. Here's the shape of it right now. How does that feel to you? And then if not, give us some other ideas. And that just started the framework for it. From there, we then scaled it up. We then went out to our top lender community. So our top lenders are a bit like Airbnb superhosts. They're just the highest performing, the best rated, the best reviewed. And we've got, an exclusive community chat with them on WhatsApp. We've got various connections with them. So we then went to them and we said, hey, what do you think about this? Do you like it? Do you don't? Does anyone want to speak to us about this? And we did, you can use the polls in WhatsApp. It's really quick and easy. And then we scaled that up again, and then we scaled it to a survey that we then sent out to all the lenders. And so you kind of took this approach, and the whole way through, I started off with, sort of a circular shape, went to a square shape, went to a triangle shape, the whole way through, and it's just constantly affecting how the decision's made. But this whole process took about 2 weeks, probably tops, in terms of the planning. Then the ideation and the sort of, putting together the designs, the cards, getting engineering requirements, everything, that took about a week. And then we worked on it. Probably give or take a week or two, probably with testing. And it's live in production, but it's under sort of internal testing. And it's going to be launched imminently. So it was just an amazing example of taking something where we knew we were solving a customer problem, but having it shaped entirely by the customer the way through. And very exciting. I'm sorry I can't talk about it.
Stay tuned. Awesome. Well, something also, that we kind of discussed before was this idea of circular fashion. It's a growing trend, but I feel like a lot of people aren't familiar with it. It's kind of a complex concept. So how do you guys at HURR define it and implement it into your business model?
Yeah, I think that the high level explanation of circular fashion and the mission that we're trying to pursue here is we want to get more use out of the things that already exist. Because the intention there is that we'll have to produce fewer things as time goes on. And that's the part that really, really hurts the planet. It's the constant overproduction, overconsumption of things. But that's not going to change because ultimately fashion market is a business like any other, and the supply will respond to the demand. And so if the demand for new things remains the same or continues increasing, as it sadly is, then the supply will respond accordingly. Because as much as you might want some big fashion conglomerate to really care about these things, that's not how capitalism works. So ultimately what we're trying to do is change the way that people consume fashion so that you get more uses out of the things that are already in your wardrobe, or the things that someone else has in their wardrobe. And that comes in a few different ways. Rental is just one. You've got resale as well, which is the fastest growing part of our business at the moment, which is really exciting. You've got repairs as well. We're seeing a lot of startups pop up in the UK with sort of like on-demand repairs, or find a repair person to help if you've got a nick or a tear in your dress. So it's really just about that. It's about slower consumption, getting more uses out of what's already in your wardrobe. And I can't remember this stat, and I know that Victoria, my co-founder, will kick me for it, but there was this really terrifying stat about once a photo of an item goes up on Instagram, the likelihood of it being reworn by that person is tiny. It was low double digits, something along those lines. And that is such a crazy concept. So that's really what we're trying to do. And it's really easy to get involved. You mentioned Vestiaire as one of your customers. They're a real leader and a pioneer in luxury resale. You've got the Real over here in the US. Rent the Runway is the big rental player over here in the US. So all of these different providers are just trying to get more use out of the things that already exist, and that's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Like, I just had a wedding this past weekend, and I will not wear that dress again. And so now, my first stop is Rent the Runway or places like that, because it's crazy just to have it, sitting in my closet, or now that I'm done with it, I'll post it on Poshmark for somebody else. So yeah, that's really great. And have you faced any challenges in educating your consumers on this circular fashion kind of movement, and the impact that fast fashion is having?
So definitely, just from a general consumer behavior point of view, we're all very sort of, these decisions are pre-built into us. We always know, if I need a t-shirt, I'll go to that website and I'll just buy a t-shirt and it'll arrive tomorrow. That mentality and that behavior is kind of built into us at this point. People like Amazon have created it, really, which is just the immediacy of things. So a big part of it has been trying to change that and trying to sort of unhook people from that addiction. And that requires a tremendous amount of just messaging, of comms, of education, just constantly getting the message out. The other part of it that we've tried to really consciously do is make HURR as an experience feel as close to standard e-commerce as possible. We want it to feel familiar. We want it to feel frictionless. Because at the end of the day, like I was saying earlier with the returns rate, at the end of the day, you're getting two journeys out of the one item. An item will come to you and you then got to send it back, guaranteed 100% of the time, right? Unless you then buy it whilst you're renting it, which you can do. So there's a lot of complexity there. There's a lot of friction. We've worked tirelessly and will continue to work tirelessly. It's a never-ending job to reduce the friction. And yeah, a big part of that is creating a familiar experience. And I think through that, people are then going to be more likely to come and try renting or resell or repairs for the first time. And once they do it once, they're hooked. It's amazing. I mean, our sort of repeat behavior metrics are pretty astonishing. From the get-go, when we really started analyzing that data, people were just repeating without us doing really any CRM, anything at all. They just loved it. The biggest hurdle to overcome was your first rental. And so that's why we focused intensely on that for quite a while.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And I feel like you guys are definitely, doing a lot of new stuff in the rental space. Like you mentioned a little bit earlier, you guys have recently launched HURR Flex, which I think, kind of remove some of those barriers or like nervousness that someone has when they're looking to rent for the first time. So maybe if you could just go into, what HURR Flex is and how it's a little bit different than the traditional, like rental subscription models.
Yeah. So at its core, it's a pass. It's a single one-off pass that you can buy as many times as you want, but it's not subscription based. The nature of why we wanted to build something like this really stemmed from, again, speaking to customers and seeing that they want to rent more things more often, more affordably. And that's very challenging to do, especially with the marketplace, but especially when you're trying to compete a lot with other providers. And so for us, we thought, okay, well, if we can build this pass that has a fixed price, the value that you're unlocking for it. And the nearest comparison we can draw is Class Pass, although that's subscription based, and then also I don't know if you guys have Line Bikes here in the US, but that's owned by Uber, I think. You can get that on subscription, but you can also just buy a Line Pass, and I am one of the most prolific Line Pass purchasers in London because I love using Line Bikes. But I pay a fixed price and I know what it gets me. And it's the same thing here with HURR Flex. We're offering two different passes, a premium and a pro, with different amounts. So they cost different amounts and then they unlock different amounts of value. And then the experience from there is really simple. You just pick the thing that you want to rent. So it's really, it's been able to unlock much more of that sort of initial barrier to people trying rental for the first time. We also see it as the first step on probably what's going to be quite a long journey, considering how long the journey here has been, to trying to get people to rent for the everyday. So as you might imagine, you straight away you mentioned wedding, right? It's the number one reason that people will come and rent from us still, and amongst that, and then many other occasions as well. But we started seeing a shift towards what we call the everyday. So that's, it might be like some sweatpants. It might just be what you're wearing to the office. It might be if you're literally just going out for dinner with the girls in the evening. It could be anything, right? But just outside of the purview of these big occasions. So Flex is our first step into unlocking that behavior by making it more affordable, more easy, and just a lot more predictable. I think that's what people want. They want predictability. So it's been fun. It was even quicker than the surprise feature that's coming out soon. That turnaround was insane. But we're really happy with it.
Yeah, and I think that's awesome because I've definitely been a victim to sign up for X, Y, and Z, and then I forget that it's a subscription, and then meals are delivered to my house, and I'm like, oh, whoops, forgot to cancel that. And so it's just nice to know exactly what you're getting. Maybe December is a huge month and I need this, and then January is a little bit slower and I can pick it back up again in March. Just being able to be, flexible.
Nice.
It's so nice.
You've got an opening our marketing team. We really considered it for a while because I think we had a lot of questions from our investors. We had a lot of questions from advisors, from customers about creating a subscription product, right? Rent the Runway famously kind of pioneered the subscription-based rental. But even they've moved away from it because I think there's been quite a significant in the UK, it's called the cost of living crisis. It's this big title that all the news outlets like to use, but fundamentally consumers are less willing to spend because obviously the last few years have seen quite a lot of turbulence in the market. So when we were asking this question to ourselves, to our friends, to our family, to our customers, the last thing that someone wants is another subscription. We've already got Spotify, Netflix, Prime, a meal kit delivery. You've got so many things. The last thing we wanted to do was to add to that and to create. It doesn't mean that we won't do it, obviously, but I think just to start with, we wanted to give people flexibility to be able to just buy a pass when they wanted. And it's the same with, I'll draw a comparison to Line Bikes. They have the same model. You can just buy a very short, snappy pass, or you can buy a pass that will last you the month, and that's it. No subscription. You don't have to think about cancelling it.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, and I feel even credit cards now are turning, everyone's got a subscription tracker feature.
Yes.
So because a lot of people are saying you don't even know what you're paying for.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And what was the you said that it was very fast to launch. So what was the product management process like when you guys were about to launch HURR Flex?
Yeah, so we had a bit of time pressure because of the seasonal nature of our business with occasions. We've got two peak kind of trading periods over summer and winter, and we were shortly going to be entering that summer peak. And so for us, we really thought this is that sort of, we can hit this now, or we'll have to wait to really be able to get some good data, some good feedback, some good early results on launching a product like this. So we that time pressure was very much there in the background, but the same process was followed. We knew that headline, and we want people to rent more things more often, more affordably. And from there started a whole ideation process. I think it literally started on Monday, and we were sat and we had a 3-hour meeting block. We just went into it and we just started speaking. And through that, someone said, I really like the line passes. And then someone else said, I love ClassPass. And then from there, the idea started building. We then had very, very snappy, frequent conversations with customers. And effectively, the whole thing was launched from literally day one of kicking off the project, if you will, to it going live within, I think, 3 to 4 weeks in the end. And that included a massive marketing push, huge amounts of press, a launch event with some of our top lenders. The whole thing was like whiplash when I look back on it. But I think it was really a show of force, not only just from product and engineering and design, but it was a show of force of driving some strategy forward really hard and fast from our executive team. I think it was like, let's really get behind this and rally the troops. And and we this is going to be such a humble brag moment, but I'm so proud of the team that I am always bragging about it. We set ourselves a target of how many flex passes we wanted to hit within 3 months of launching. We hit that target within, I think it was 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And it just flew past. And from there, we ideated a bit more, we iterated a bit more. But being a small team, eventually we had to move on to some other things. But we felt so confident in what we'd launched with, and those immediate results being so strong that we thought, okay, great, we can leave that now to mature for a little bit. We'll come back to it when we've got time. So it was probably the quickest product launch I think I've ever done in my life, considering the size and the scale of it and the product marketing that was going on with it. But so proud of the team. They've smashed it with that. So
yeah, that's amazing. How big is your product team?
So we've got 2 product managers, and then we've got a team of around 10 to 15 engineers.
Oh, wow.
So it's really small, really nimble. Yeah.
Amazing.
Considering what we're building.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So kind of, zooming out a little bit to marketplaces as a whole, how do you anticipate consumer behavior shifting within the next few years, especially in terms of sustainability, ethical consumption, and those types of things?
I think marketplaces are a really great place to start with kind of changing any consumer behavior, because I think the idea of being able to transact with another individual helps take a lot of the fear, I suppose, of some of those new behaviors out of it. So for me, most of my experience has been marketplace based. I think it's one of the most challenging types of businesses to grow, say, versus a SaaS business. But really, I think it opens up the sort of opportunity for a company like HURR or a company like Vestia to start exploring new, different trends, behaviors, trying to build new products like we've done with Flex within the space. I think it's just like a petri dish, for want of a better term, maybe a test tube. I don't really know what the right thing to say there would be that's on brand, but it's really a great experimentation environment for trying out these things. And I'll be the first to admit we've launched things in the past that haven't really worked out, and that some of them have been probably bigger than I would have been comfortable with. But all in all, you can't have any regrets with these things. And our head of growth was telling me this the other day. She said, look, the A/B tests, when we're running those, she said, it's okay for the A/B test not to go the way that the hypothesis thought it was going to, right? That's part of A/B testing. And that's the same when you're launching big features at scale, whatever it might be. Some things won't work out. So I think the way that consumer trends are moving, marketplace is the best place to try and test these. I'll draw another comparison with Airbnb and Airbnb experiences. They launched an entire like experiences business, alongside their core. And I don't actually know how well or not that's been going, but they never had to go into that. They could have stayed just being property rental, right? But they're trying, they're exploring, and I think that's what's amazing with marketplaces. You've just got so many customers you can immediately test and learn with. So
yeah, that's awesome. And how do you see, because you've mentioned a few times, your community of lenders. So how do you see marketplaces, leading more into that community and creating, just one sector of people who are interested in circular fashion and want to resell and, be sustainable?
We're really proud that when we first launched the business as a whole, but before we even launched a product, right, when we just created the company, we'd managed to build a wait list of 10,000 people without spending a dime. It was all organic. And the reason for that was because we actually invested in speaking to people, in creating content that people might be interested in trying to create a community. And our early adopters were 100% people who were absolutely obsessed by circularity and sustainability and eco-consciousness and just trying to live their lives better. And, it was a really small subset of the country. And what we sadly realized was most people would gladly say that sustainability is at the top of their priority list because it's the right thing to say, not what they actually believe. Yeah. So we learned that quite quickly, and that's where we identified this core group and we built a whole community around it. And as we grew and as we expanded, I'll be the first to say, I think we lost it for a couple of years. I think we were just growing so quickly at such fast pace that we didn't have the luxury of being able to do so. And then over the last couple of years, we've been, as the CEO likes to say, going back to basics, which is very much bringing that back in. So the top lender community chat is fundamental to most of the decisions that get taken around lenders. We very recently launched a much larger lender community WhatsApp, which factors in now hundreds, if not thousands, of lenders rather than a smaller group of top lenders. And that was a bit floodgates opening moment. Wow, that was we learned a lot about ourselves and the business very quickly. But I keep saying to the team, show me a business that is doing this with their customers. Show me someone in our space that is taking the time to create these community groups, to talk to people, to actually respond. I mean, how often can, a product director directly respond to a WhatsApp of someone complaining about something on the app and you can go, right, really appreciate this. We're going to look at this and try and fix it and we'll let you know. And I think that's, again, a sort of hallmark of our company as being so intensely community focused and customer focused. And again, it doesn't take much. And you look at the biggest companies in the world, Tim Cook at Apple reads his emails, and you and I could send him an email now and it will be read. That's the kind of mentality, I think, which sets apart good businesses. And that's how we, as we said, we started, we lost it for a while, and now we've managed to regain it, which is really nice. And I don't know, I feel like a broken record, but it's so dead simple. Just listen to your customers and speak to them.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. I mean, there's been times where, I order from some huge company, something isn't right, it's damaged, whatever. And when the customer service is poor, it just immediately turns me off from, ordering from there again. So I can't even imagine getting a response from a product provider. I'd be like, oh my gosh, never mind, I take it back, I love it, it's perfect.
Some people do have that, they're a bit guilty, like, oh, you're here. I'm like, no, I'm here, don't worry. But I think the customer service point is also something that, you go and read our Trustpilot reviews, it's probably one of our biggest differentiators. It's just hiring and working with compassionate people to try and solve customer problems compassionately. We've all been there. We've all been angry, furious, just red-faced, angry at a company because an order didn't arrive or something like that. But ultimately having a friendly person on the other end just completely changes everything. And so we know for a fact, again, that rental has more friction in it than most standard sort of e-commerce transactions. And so that's why it was really important for us to invest a lot of time in being able to support customers, answer their questions, not have everyone shove through like an Autobot thing with FAQs, that's been our approach to it. And I think the customer success team do an amazing job because, they actually just treat people like people. These all sound like such ridiculously simple, straightforward things, but businesses just so rarely follow them. So yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like yesterday, during another webinar that I was hosting, AI was obviously brought up. And I feel like even though we're moving towards this like more AI world, people are almost putting like more emphasis on the human connection and like actually being heard and not just pushed to a like support bot or something like that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I'll give a really weird example, but the big telecoms provider in the UK is called BT, and they very famously and historically had the worst customer service of any company, right? You would get redirected through all kinds of menus and speak to people across the whole world. And it was such a complex setup that customers hated. And it became part of everyday British banter, right? Like people would talk about how crap the customer service was. And then, so I had that imbued in my head. And when I moved into my place, we had really bad internet problems. And it was for 2 or 3 months, basically waiting for engineers to come. It was all really long and convoluted. But I have to say, every time I picked up the phone, within 5 seconds of me selecting, a couple options, I was speaking to someone. And they've obviously changed something about it. And so now I've weirdly become this like counterculture fan of BT's customer service. And but I think it shows you again how, to your point there, AI is never going to be able to replace people, and you will not get to a point of compassion. People will know that they're talking to AI. People will hate the fact that they're having to interact with AI because they'll believe there's something that's being taken away from that. And I even think you can see it in other culture moments. People suddenly love to buy vinyl. People love to take film. I'm saying all these things because this is exactly who I am as a person. So it's a bit, but the reality is we're going almost back in time to this slower way of living. And I think that that's a reflection of our lives becoming so consumed by technology. AI now making that even worse, that I think there will always be a need for people.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so many times, even the options, like it's just not exactly what I'm looking for. And so I press options and it won't get me a person. So I hang up, try again, press different options. But yeah, there's just something about like an actual person who you can fully, maybe one day AI will be like advanced enough, but there's just like nothing.
Not for now.
Yeah. No, definitely not. Awesome. Well, I think that is all the questions that we have for today. So thank you so much for joining us. Where can people keep up with you and HURR?
HURR, you can find us at HURR.com. And then across socials, it will just be HURR, and that's HURR. Me, you can just find me on LinkedIn. I think that's good enough. I don't want anyone finding me elsewhere. But yeah, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for your time. It's been amazing.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much. We will be looking out for that new feature that's coming soon. But thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, Kendi.